Hello and welcome back to Echo. We will be continuing where we left off, which is right after meeting Raven at what I'm assuming is Peyton Mall, and then agreeing to have him come over to help with, the little research thing, but Carl didn't seem to be too happy about that. Also, this is all the day where Carl will be having his interview. So I wonder how that's gonna go. If you've already seen these videos, then you know exactly how it's gonna go. Hey, is this useful? I look over at Raven as he holds up what looks like a porcelain canine doll of some kind. Maybe? Again, just set aside the stuff that you think might be interesting enough for me to take pictures of. Okay. He puts it to the side and starts digging through the tub, rather carelessly again. I sigh and turn back to the binder. I really wish Carl had agreed to come down. Again, he declined to help me, even after Raven arrived. But now I guess I have my answer as to why. More stuff is missing from the tubs, and I know it can't be anyone else except for Carl. The containers were turned the opposite way when I got down to the crawl space earlier this morning. On top of that, there were two more loose wrappers in the tub, along with... I trace a paw up the torn edges of a missing page in the John Bagay section. The question, of course, is why he would be doing this. There's absolutely no reason for it. And the bizarreness of the situation makes it pretty much impossible for me to confront him on it. It's his house, after all, though if he didn't want me going through it, why would he have shown it to me in the first place? And he isn't even trying to cover his tracks. In fact, I practically caught him in the act just a few nights ago. He must know now that I'd be able to put that together pretty quickly. I close the binder, deciding that this will be the last time I'll be going through this stuff. If Carl doesn't want me digging up info on his family's history, then I'm not going to pry any further. Hey, look at this! Raven holds up a wooden train. Bet this was probably the shit back in the day. I sigh. Probably. My phone buzzes. I take it out, my notification telling me that I have a text from Leo. Meet me at diner for lunch, just you. For a moment I feel a pang of guilt. He told me how excited he was to hang out with me this week, yet I spent almost all of my time here with Carl. Though, from what I've gathered in text, Leo's been spending most of his time with TJ and Jenna, since the Lynx is apparently still feeling down. At least he had that to keep him occupied. My excuse that Carl has all the information I need for my project made my decision to spend most of my time here a little less weird. What time? And what do you mean by just me? Hey Rave, I'm gonna go meet with some friends. Could you keep Carl company? Okay, sure. Raven seems pretty busy pushing the train across the ground while attaching more cars. And make sure you keep that together. I want to get a picture of it later. Now, I need to talk in privato. I sigh and put my phone away, patting my pocket for my keys as I head up the crawlspace steps. Leo waves at me as I walk into the diner. I'm surprised to see that the diner is completely empty. There's almost always someone in here. Something else is amiss, too, and I don't notice it until I've sat down across from the wolf. It's eerily quiet. The usual rockabilly tracks aren't playing from the jukebox. Hey. Hey man, what's up? The atmosphere is unreasonably awkward, and I blame most of that on the strange state of the diner. So apparently we had to go up to the counter to order. Janice isn't here. Oh, why's that? Leo shrugs as he sips on a milkshake. Dunno, sick, I guess. It's then that I remember the story Flynn had told us about Janice and her incident. Though I'm not gonna bring that up because I'm sure that's what Leo's thinking as well. Well, I'm not really hungry anyway. What was it that you wanted to talk about? Leo swallows slowly, then looks down at the table. So, you probably know this whole thing didn't go as I planned. I look at the collection of condensation on his glass before I speak up. Yeah, sort of. Leo frowns, as if he'd hoped that I would have tried to deny it. Well, it's mostly my fault. I should have done a better job at resolving shit. Now I frown. Hey. I wait until he takes his eyes off the table to look at me. You know, you're not our big brother anymore. He looks back down at the table. We're adults, believe it or not. We make our own decisions now. Everything we're doing right now is our decision. Our fault, not yours. Leo's eyes get shiny, but he smiles. Heh, you're right. Guess I just want to go back is all. Hey, we're still young. You're talking like my grandpa. Leo laughs and leans back. Mine too. Leo jerks his head as if he just remembered something. So, what the hell happened between Jenna and Carl? I was actually hoping you could have told me that. I have no idea. She keeps going on about him not participating. I told her it was fine, but she just can't seem to let it go. Yeah, well, it's really weighing on Carl, I think. Leo swigs his milkshake, foregoing the straw. He wipes away the cream from his muzzle as he brings it back down onto the table with some resolve. Well, I'm not letting it end like this. Let what end like this? Our group. You realize this might be the last time we're all together? That sentence immediately forms a lump in my throat. Yeah. So, I'm not gonna let it end like this. Flynn pissed at TJ, Jenna pissed at Carl, you and me. He lets that hang, and when I don't say anything, he coughs. So, I planned something. What? His hesitant tone is making me nervous. He looks me in the eye and squares his shoulders. We're going to the lake tomorrow. He lets that sink in as I turn his words over in my head. I had suspected that this is what he was getting at. I considered my words for a moment, not wanting to say the wrong thing. I don't know if that's... Leo puts up a paw. I've thought this over real hard, Chase. That day, what happened to Sydney, it fucked us all up. Changed us all. Not for the better either. It took something from us. Leo pauses, looking to the side as if searching for words. Flynn, Sydney was his best friend. And Carl, he's been depressed ever since. I feel the need to speak up. I don't know if you can pin all of that on what happened. Maybe we would have turned out the same. He presses on. TJ saw Sydney die. Saw him drown. Can you imagine that at 8 years old? And Jenna, has she ever been happy since? I shake my head. I always felt like that experience helped her. In a weird way. She decided to go to school, leave Echo. He doesn't seem to be listening to me. And you. I love you. But you did change that day it happened. You're practically a different person. I don't have anything to say to that. And me. His voice catches in his throat as I close my eyes. Leo. I was supposed to be watching all of you. I was supposed to take care of... Leo stops talking, and I keep my eyes on the table while he grabs one of the brown napkins and wipes his eyes. When he speaks again, his voice is thick and cracks with emotion. His parents never said, but they trusted me with Sydney, and I think they blamed me. No, Leo. He falls silent. For a while, we both sit there and share the feeling of being weighed down by 11 years of baggage. A good 5 minutes go by, Leo staring out the window. The afternoon sun turns his natural red fur almost orange. We can't do this anymore, and this might be our last chance to find some kind of closure. I take a deep breath, swallowing past the lump. Okay. He looks up at me, relief all over his face. So, you'll go? I smile reassuringly at him. Of course. Have you told anyone else? He lowers his ears. No. Oh god, are you going to tell them? I don't know. Leo. He does his signature shrug, paws out. I really don't know how else to get them to go. Then there's no way this isn't going to be a disaster. Hey, we gotta try. I guess. So, can you bring Carl with you? I think for a moment. Oh shit, Carl has an interview. What time? 10, I think? Well, we'll plan around it. Text me the actual time, okay? Anyway, I invited you out here to talk about more than just shitty stuff. What have you been up to the past 3 years? And so we talk for the next 2 hours, catching up on everything. It feels good, and I regret not spending more time with Leo this past week. As we part in the small parking lot, Leo surprises me with a hug. I have a good feeling about this. It'll be hard, but we'll be better for it. I hug back, hoping with all my heart that he's right. He's not. Saturday. This is where the shit goes down. Dudes, I don't know about this. I peek into the bathroom, watching as Carl stares at himself in the mirror, running his fingers through his hair. You look great! Raven stands back, grinning with a trimmer in his paws, looking Carl up and down. Tell him, Chase! Carl looks at me and I have to agree that he looks quite a bit better. You look fantastic, a lot cleaner. Thanks? Now take a shower. Before Carl can say anything, Raven shoves the mall bag into Carl's chest before slamming the door in his face. Man, this is going to be great! If the interview was based on looks alone, he'd have that job locked. Yeah, probably. And so, with that, we move to the living room and wait. Half an hour later, Carl shuffles in quietly. We don't even know he's there until he clears his throat. How does it look? He looks good, but I'm more concerned with the fact that he looks more insecure than I've ever seen him. He shifts from hoof to hoof, not making eye contact at all, his fingers pulling at the rolled up sleeves. Oh my god, that looks fantastic! There's no way that you won't get the job now. Raven sounds genuine enough, but then again, he's always excited. Carl looks over at me and I give a start, realizing how bad my silence must seem. You do look great, Carl. But, Raven chuckles and Carl's eyes widen. What? The beanie. Do you always wear that thing? Carl lifts a paw to it. Usually? You can't wear that. How do you even get it on? It's stretchy, and my head fur looks awful. Seriously, you can't wear a beanie to an interview. Carl's getting all fidgety again, so I butt in. I would say don't wear it because, don't wear a beanie to an interview. But it's Carl, he needs a safety thing. Hey, I actually think it looks kinda nice with everything else you got on. Carl glances at me, but stops fidgeting with his beanie. Raven looks at me, then back to Carl. Well, alright. Carl sighs and shifts around again. We watch him expectantly. Dudes, this feels weird as all. It's new. You'll get used to it. I pull out my phone to look at the time. Alright, we really need to head out. We should get there early. As we head to the door, Raven makes as if to follow us. I kick myself for forgetting to talk to him earlier. I turn around to face him as Carl heads out the door. Hey, Raven. He stops. What's up? So, after the interview, me and Carl and our other friends, we're gonna be doing something. Raven raises a brow. Oh? Oh, it's not that we don't want you to come. Though I really wouldn't mind having his upbeat attitude present at what will surely be the biggest downer of the week. It's just that it's really personal. Oh, really? Yeah. Seriously, you wouldn't want to come. We're gonna be talking about some heavy shit. Raven seems to perk up a little at that. Oh, well, I wouldn't want to intrude. I'll just hang out here then. Yeah, we'll be back soon, okay? Sounds good, but you have to tell me how the interview goes. I know he's going to do amazing. I will, and he will. See you in a few. Carl looks confused as I come out of the car alone. Where's Raven? I sit down and make a show of buckling my seatbelt. So I wanted to tell you this after the interview so you didn't have more to stress out over. What? I pause as I back out, pretending to be distracted so I can gather my thoughts. So Leo wants us to meet him up at the lake. The lake? The lake? Yeah. Why? Closure, he says. Carl stays quiet as we drive through Echo, and I swerve to avoid all the potholes. As I'm merging onto the highway, he finally speaks up. I think it's a good idea. Like, we've been sitting on this for how long? We should do it while we got the chance. I nod my agreement. I just hope everyone else feels the same. We fall back into silence, and it stays that way for the remaining 20-minute drive. Carl gets more nervous the closer we get. I can see his knees bouncing out the corner of my eyes as he stares out the window. I reach out and put a paw on his shoulder as we pull into the parking lot of the print shop. You look awesome, and you're gonna do amazing. Carl starts taking deep breaths, staring out the windshield. Just be yourself. Everyone loves a relaxed employee. I wish you'd let me have a smoke before we left. Yeah, go into an interview smelling like pot. Great idea. Carl giggles nervously, but otherwise doesn't move. Do you want me to go in with you? Carl shakes his head quickly, unbuckling his seatbelt as he opens the door. No, man. I'll be fine. Okay, cool. I'll be waiting. I grin at him, but he just shuts the door and ambles up to the print shop. He pushes on the door, and then, when it doesn't move, he pushes harder, shaking the glass. I start to open my door to tell him to pull instead, but he seems to figure it out before I have to, and disappears inside. Poor Carl. Oh, Carl. Then, I sit back and wait. I try to take a nap since I'd been up all night with Raven and Carl gaming, but the heat beating down through the windows becomes too uncomfortable. I turn the AC back on, then shuffle through the stations, but I only find twangy country and mariachi. I look at the time. 10:10 a.m. If the interview started on time, then he was probably almost done with it by now. I sort of want to go inside, but I know Carl wouldn't want to. I settle back again and close my eyes, trying to get some relief from the failing AC. Then the door rattles and I hear haphazard hoof steps. I open my eyes, but no one's there. I do catch some movement disappearing around the side of the store, and I lean around to get a better look. I wait, but Carl, at least I think it's Carl, doesn't come back from around the corner. Looking around, I slowly open my door. Carl? Nothing. Carl? I yell it, but he doesn't come out. Feeling some dread build up in my stomach, I get out of the car and slowly walk around the side of the building. It's an alley between the print shop and what I think is a laundromat. Nothing is in the alley except for a few dumpsters and clumps of garbage. I step carefully around the puddles covered in oil slick and wonder if maybe he just really wanted a smoke. Carl? Something shifts on the other side of one of the dumpsters and I hear sniffling. Wordlessly, I walk around the dumpster to the other side. Carl is bent over, his back to me, paws on his knees. His whole body is shaking, and his breaths are ragged. Holy shit, Carl! I'm at his side instantly, rubbing his back. What happened? Are you alright? The stench of vomit hits my nose, and I don't need to look closely to know what the puddle between Carl's hooves is. Carl makes sure to turn his face away from me, not saying a word. Shit. I dash back to the car and open the passenger door so that I can get to the glove box. I pull out a few napkins before hurrying back to the Ram. He takes them from me wordlessly and starts wiping his face. The last time I'd seen Carl like this was just last year, when he'd had his panic attack at school. I didn't think he'd have that problem now, after all the therapy and time away. I try to rub his back comfortingly in a clockwise motion like my mom would do for me. He's at least not hyperventilating. He has his horns pressed up against the wall, taking deep breaths as he wipes his face again. Why do I suck at everything? He says it quietly, between gasps, but I can make it out. No, Carl, you're fine. Let's just get you home. I start to pull on his arm, but he yanks it from me violently. Don't touch me! I'm stunned into silence. I just stare at him, mouth open. He glances at me and his eyes are red, and, for once, it's not because of weed. Carl starts off towards the car on his own, spitting off to the side as he does. Carl, what happened? He whirls on me. I fucked up, obviously. Any more fucking questions? His voice breaks apart at the last sentence, and he turns away from me as his face starts to screw up. My stomach feels hollow as I watch Carl get into my car. I've never, ever seen him like this. He immediately hunches forward, head in his paws. I slowly walk up to the driver's side door, feeling like crying myself. I sit for a while, waiting to see if Carl is going to say anything. He does. I'm sorry. He blurts it out through his fingers. I look over at him, scared to say anything in case I say the wrong thing. It was a disaster, man. He takes in a deep, shuddering breath. He could tell I wasn't into it right away. I was awkward as fuck. He leans back and tugs at his shirt. This shit isn't me, and they knew it, and it got me nervous. I've been nervous ever since I got my clothes, since I got this stupid trim. At that moment, it feels as if I've been punched in the stomach. I'm just now remembering the conversation we had on Wednesday. I close my eyes for a moment, not wanting to believe I'd become exactly what he said I wasn't, what he liked me for not being. We sit in silence for a long, long time until Carl finally looks at me and smiles. God damn it, we both knew this was gonna happen, didn't we? I don't know, man. And fuck me very much for taking it out on you. It's sort of my fault. Nope, I'm the one that screwed up the interview. Carl settles back into his seat. Now with that fuck up out of the way, on to the next one. I force a smile. You sure you still want to go? Hell no, but I don't think we have much of a choice. I sigh, looking at the hazy horizon in the direction of where I know Echo is. Can't wait. So with that, I turn on the ignition and pull out of the parking lot, leaving the print shop and its alley far, far behind us. Leo, TJ, Flynn, and Jenna are all gathered around a picnic table. It's set out neatly on concrete in front of the rocky shore of the lake. None of this existed when we were kids. In fact, it didn't even exist when I left. Echo is trying really hard to stay alive. I don't need to get out of the car to gauge the mood my friends are in, their shoulders slumped, faces turned away from each other. As I park, Leo's ears perk, and he turns to wave at us. I take a deep breath and turn to Carl. You ready? Nope. Nevertheless, he opens his door and steps out, and I do the same. The sun beats down on us, but being this close to the lake cools things down a bit. As we approach, I see Leo with his butt up against the edge of the table while TJ sits next to him. Jenna sits next to TJ while Flynn sits across from Jenna. When Flynn turns around, he immediately zeroes in on Carl. What the hell happened to you? Drugs, sex, rock and roll. Out of order, bud. No, I just put it in the appropriate descending order. Flynn rolls his eyes, then looks at me. Hey, fuckboy, maybe you can talk some fucking sense into this idiot. Leo's ears are flat, but he doesn't look at Flynn. Glad you guys could make it. Sure. Carl sits down next to Flynn, and I sit on Carl's other side, across from TJ. The silence that follows is possibly the most awkward one of the week. Flynn snickers. See? This is stupid. How about we let it happen naturally, Flynn, instead of using every moment to take shots at people? Jenna's tone is icy. She hasn't even acknowledged me or Carl. TJ, meanwhile, keeps his head down, poking a sharp claw into the soft wood of the table. Flynn shrugs and starts to do his trademark I don't give a fuck lean back pose, but gives a start when he realizes that there isn't any backing on the bench. Well, we've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes and nothing's happened. Maybe you want to start us off? Flynn sighs. Well, we could talk about how I never agreed to this shit. How Leo's a complete fucking idiot for forcing this to happen, and that I wonder what he thought this would accomplish anyway. That's a start, I guess. Flynn sets his jaw. Of course, talk that would actually get us somewhere wouldn't be from me, and he's not talking. The temperature seems to lower in the impossible hot air, and I don't look at TJ to see how he reacts. After a brief silence, Leo speaks up. How about we start with you, Flynn? Flynn looks at Leo, brows raised. How do you feel about what happened? I see Flynn clench his jaw. What? His tone sends shivers down my spine, and I feel Carl tense up next to me. I look out across the lake, the shimmering reflections blinding me. You never talk about it. Maybe it'll help? Sweats pour down the back of my neck, building up under my arms. Even with the wind coming off the lake, it's way too hot. By telling you how I fucking feel? How the fuck do you think I feel? Flynn screams it, and TJ jumps in front of me. You just gonna keep it buried your whole life, Garrobo? I think about the time I used to come down to this spot every day and skip rocks with Jenna and TJ. So this is how you plan to fucking get us over this? By fucking making fun of me? I'm not making fun of you. I'm trying to help you. Taunting someone who's felt like shit for decades is a pretty weird way of helping. Please, guys. Don't you even fucking talk right now. Don't you dare talk to him like that. We all went through this. Calm down, Flynn. The table shakes as Flynn slams his fists down on the wood, snarling and standing up. Tell me to calm down one more fucking... Just shut the hell up. I stand up. Everyone turns to look at me, including Flynn. I don't say anything. Instead, I just strip off my shirt. The hell are you doing? I don't answer him. Instead, I take off my belt and slide off my pants so that I'm only left in my boxers. Without a word, I head to the lake. It's about 100 yards from the table to the lake, and while most of the way there is sand, a good stretch of it is pointy rocks. I make my way carefully over the section, remembering the numerous cuts I'd gotten as a kid. I don't look back until I'm right at the water's edge, and when I do, I see Leo following me, in the process of taking his own shirt off. The rest of them are still sitting at the table, but I don't care because this is really just for me. I step into the water and sigh at how cool it is before I wade out further. Once I'm waist deep, I dive under the water and pop up several feet further away from the shore. I'm neck deep at this point, and when I look back, I can see Carl now, standing at the lake's edge, paws deep in his pockets. Behind him, Jenna is helping TJ across the rocks. Only Flynn remains behind the table, watching us all. Leo's up to his chest at this point, and I swim in a circle around him before diving under, then popping up right in front of him. Gah! Sneaky otter! He splashes water in my face and I cough. Don't be that way. I swim around him some more and laugh at how he flounders after me. He was always a terrible swimmer. I dive under the water again and swim up towards the shore, popping up about 10 feet away from Carl. Having fun? He's smiling, looking a lot more relaxed than he has all day. Probably because we just avoided a situation that could have gotten really ugly. To my left, Jenna and TJ are sitting on a boulder in the shallows. TJ's slacks rolled up to his knees. Him and Jenna seem to be talking, so I decide not to play the same trick on them as I did with Leo. Flynn, meanwhile, is standing up, now arms folded. For the next little while, I swim around, occasionally popping up in front of Carl or Leo, sometimes splashing them with my tail. There's a freeing feeling about finally swimming in this lake again, and having so much space. Flynn, after a good 20 minutes, comes up to the shore. He leans against an old, familiar boulder, watching us. There's no way for me to know how they're all feeling, if it's liberating like it is for me. Flynn is right, in a way. We can't just talk about it because there's nothing to really say. What happened, happened, and no amount of talking can fix it. What we can do, or what I can do, at least, is choose to move past it. And that's what I'm doing right now. I just hope that that's what they're feeling too. Eventually, I run out of the exhilarating energy that had so consumed me, and instead drift to the bottom of the shallows. I lay on my back against the sand, staring up at the murky glow of the sun. I feel my eyelids get heavy and I stretch out against the soft lake bed. It is, of course, a bad idea to fall asleep underwater. If that were to happen, though, I'd probably just try to breathe, get a nose full of water, and immediately wake up. Still, I decide that it's best to avoid that, if I can, and force myself to open my eyes again and swim to the surface. Except, I can't. I'm frozen. Every nerve in my body is on fire, and I struggle not to panic, to not start trying to breathe because that's all my body wants to do. I close my eyes, will myself to be calm. Sleep paralysis usually only lasts about a minute at most for me. I can hold my breath for 8, and I've only been under 4. God, I have no idea. It feels like it's been a while. My chest is already starting to burn, and that usually means it's been at least 6 minutes. And this is starting to last a long time. Despite my efforts, panic starts to set in, and it sets in quickly. I start jerking my body around, trying to get something, anything to move. I don't understand why I'm not floating to the surface. I'm not trying to stay underwater. The seconds turn to minutes, and now my lungs are really burning. Something has to be holding me down. Maybe some kind of vegetation? The water begins to glow red, as if blood has spread across the surface above me. I tug and pull, praying that this is all a dream, that I'm back in Carl's room, and that at any moment I'll wake up. You thought that it would be this easy. That's a good one. I try to turn my head towards the voice, which is right in my ear, even though I'm underwater. Things go silent again. At this point, I start to contemplate that I might actually die. I can't get my body to move. None of my friends know where I'm at, and now I'm almost out of air. Bubbles flow past my lips as my lungs finally give out, and blackness starts to crowd in on my vision. He's waking up! My eyes open slowly, painfully, and I'm face to face with the ram, his muzzle wet with tears. Oh my god! He is! Give him room! I feel some rough paws supporting my back, turning me on my side. Can you breathe, Chase? Leo's voice is ragged next to my ear. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I sit up quickly and a wave of dizziness threatens to topple me over again. I feel movement behind me and out of my field of vision. No, no, no! I can't believe this! I can't fucking believe this! Flynn's voice is torn and ragged. I barely recognize it. Calm down, Flynn. No! We're forced to come out here and then this shit happens? Guys, I need to go. TJ, Flynn, get over here. I feel Leo's support leaves me. Carl is still crouched down in front of me though. Oh my god, dude, what happened? Carl's gasping like he's the one that was just underwater. I don't know. Carl rubs my back as I rest my head in his paws. Vaguely, I can hear more yelling behind me, and Carl looks up too. No, don't! Leo, help! Despite my aching head, I turn around and see Flynn chasing TJ. Grab him, and then throw him down onto the rocks. Flynn doesn't get any further though, because Leo tackles him with such force, they fly a good 5 feet before smashing down into the rocks and sand. Leo wraps an arm around Flynn's neck and yanks up hard. Jesus! Carl stands up and starts gasping again. I try to, but I fall back down on my ass. Carl reaches down to help me up. Shit, you're not okay. Carl steadies me, but I'm distracted with trying to see what's happening. Leo's leaning down with his muzzle right up against Flynn's head, yelling at him. Meanwhile, Jenna's crouched over TJ. Carl starts to breathe heavily again, his wheezing picking up speed. I look over at him and his eyes are glazed, as if he's watching everything from afar. Carl, what's wrong? I don't want him having another panic attack. I know I should probably stay and try to help, but I feel so fucked up right now. Besides, I don't think it will help if Carl has a breakdown. I grab his arm. Let's get out of here, Carl. He looks at the scene for a while longer, then turns away. Without another word, we make our way back to the car. I get in, barely noticing that I'm drenching the seat. Looking through the windshield, I see that my friends are still in the same position that we left them. Except Jenna. She watches us as we pull out and keeps watching us until we're out of sight. Carl stays in his glazed state as we make the short drive back to his house. I can't give him much of my attention though. I'm more preoccupied with the fact that something terrible just happened. Not only to me, but the entire group. Maybe this is a dream? Everything feels so surreal right now, like I'm watching all of this happen from 100 miles away. I don't know. I look over at Carl, but his expression is still glassy. He looks exactly like how I'm feeling. What's wrong, Carl? I don't know. You don't? I'm cut off as a large coyote suddenly runs out into the street. But she's a good distance down the road, so there's no danger of me hitting her. I watch as she tears out into the sagebrush, zigzagging about, arms flinging out in all directions. Carl and I both watch her as we pass, silent. Something's happening in this town. To all of us. Once we get into the house, Carl heads straight for the stairs. Carl! You guys back? How'd it go? Raven's voice calls from upstairs. Ray, something's wrong. Huh? What's wrong? I don't answer as I walk to the stairs Carl just disappeared down. Once I get there, he's already gone. I make my way down the stairs and it's at that point that my headache starts to make a comeback. Carl? He's not in the basement either, but I can see the yellow light glowing from the crawl space. Something. I don't know what it is, but something feels incredibly wrong right now. Buzzing fills my head, the ground feeling unsteady, as if I'm walking on sand. Once I find Carl, we're both going to the hospital. I stumble down into the crawl space and, again, Carl's not there. I'm greeted to the familiar row of tubs, but a stack of them have been pulled away from the wall. Carl? Carl, what? I fall silent because ahead of me is a hole, about 3 feet high and 2 feet wide. What the hell? Carl? Plaster covers the top around it, as if the wall had been bashed violently to create the hole. Did Carl go through it? Getting on my paws and knees, I look into it, but the darkness is inky and so black that I swear I can touch it. As I crawl forward, my mind gives a violent jolt, and I arch my head back, teeth bared as my face spasms. And then I fall. And it feels like I fall forever. I'm pretty sure that background music isn't supposed to be there. Wind blows pleasantly through my fur, seeping underneath and cooling my sweating skin. The smell of the desert, sagebrush, and dirt overwhelm my senses. Everything is black around me, but there are a million stars above me. I hear the smattering of small feet running circles around my body, snuffling of noses up against my sides and neck. Mixed into the sounds of the wild are words, languages I don't understand, chanting and singing, the sounds of dancing. Then another language. I heard a word or two that I learned from Leo years ago. And then my own language. And above it all is a menacing cackle, one that builds and fades before choking off into a sob. The first feeling I have is one of confusion. I feel stiff and cold. I'm lying back on something hard. I expect to see stars above me when I open my eyes, but instead all I see is blackness. Panic starts to well up inside me. My breathing quickens and, though it's hard and painful, I manage to pull myself up into a sitting position. That's when I see a gentle glow coming from an opening about 30 feet away from me. Where am I? The last thing I remember was the lake. Wait, no. Carl's house is the last thing I remember. We went back to his house after the lake. Did I fall asleep in his house somewhere? I feel around on the floor with my hands and can feel wood underneath me. It creaks as I shift around. Carl? My voice comes out hard and crackly. I have to lick my lips several times to keep them from sticking together. I call out again, but more softly this time because I'm starting to wonder if someone else brought me here. When I don't hear anything, I start to crawl forward towards the light. My head throbs a little and there's a coppery taste in my mouth. Probing my tongue around, I taste the sour bits along my cheeks. I start to run through a list of things that could have happened. I was in Carl's basement, then I just sort of seized up. Did someone hit me over the head? I stop crawling and start moving my hands around my body and over my head. No sign of injuries. Aside from the cheek bites, it's really just the inside of my head that hurts. While I do this, lucidity starts to return in waves, as if a dam has broken and all my senses are falling back into place. At the same time, the panic starts to return as I realize how much this doesn't make sense. Someone had to have brought me here, wherever here is. I start crawling again, trying to keep my panic under control. I'm almost to the glow, but it's weird because it's coming from the ground. As I get closer, I hear a soft brushing behind my head. I tense and look over my shoulder. I'm greeted by the sight of inky blackness, so dark that it almost feels alive, and I get the impression of a giant mouth opening up in front of my face. The imagery gives me a jolt and I lunge forward, deciding to get up on my feet so I can move fast. And then I'm falling, but not for long. My senses are full of light now, and I throw my hands forward to catch myself. But I keep falling, and the split second before I hit, I realize there's a ladder. I instinctively grab at it, but my head hits the rungs first, and I flip forward before landing on my feet. It happens on weak ankles, though, and my right foot gives out, and my ankle rolls. I hear a series of pops before the rest of my body hits the floor. I lay there for a moment, the sudden noise and violence of the fall stunning me. In my stupor, I feel a cold spiderweb of electricity pulsing from my ankle, and that's what spurs me to move. I pull myself into a sitting position to clutch at it. Fuck! The pain isn't really bad, but something is definitely wrong and I'm not sure if I can just walk it off. That's when I notice my surroundings. A long hallway stretches out to either side of me, lit by decorative chandeliers. Looking up, I see that I've fallen down a drop-down ladder from a small square in the ceiling. What the hell? I look back down at my ankle. I wiggle it around and immediately feel another pulse of electricity that feels much more painful this time around. I grit my teeth as I spread my hands out against the wall behind me, pushing myself up slowly, making sure not to put any weight on my injured ankle. As I'm doing this, I hear a soft, clopping sound coming from my right. At the end of the hall, it looks like it takes a sharp right, and it sounds like the noises are coming from that turn. My throat tightens and I press myself harder up against the wall. I see a shadow slide up the carpet at the end of the hallway and I hold my breath. The shadow stops too, and I get the feeling that whatever it is might be holding its own breath. Finally, the tension gets to me and I clear my throat nervously. Carl? Chase? Carl! I let out a gasp of relief and almost sag down to the wall. More clopping of footsteps, and Carl appears around the corner. His eyes are wide and his nostrils flare. He stumbles up to me, his hands clasped together nervously. Holy shit, dude. It's so fucking good to see you. I press up harder against the wall, taking more weight off my foot. What the hell is going on? I don't know. I just woke up. You okay? He looks at me, then down at my foot. Are you hurt? I gesture up the ladder. I fell down that thing. Carl looks up at the ladder and the dark hole it leads up to. What were you doing up there? I don't know. I just woke up in the dark and tried to crawl out. Shit. Carl bends down to look at my ankle, which is clearly starting to swell. Can you walk? I think so. Kind of. He stands back up and looks around. Chase, I don't know what's going on, but I woke up in a bedroom up the hall like 20 minutes ago. Is this not part of your house? Carl lets out a breathy, incredulous laugh. No, definitely not. I was trying to find a window, but I can't. Maybe you were in a basement or something? The last thing I remember is your crawl space. Why would they have an attic in a basement? I look back up at the dark hole in the ceiling. Maybe it's not an attic? Chase, I'm freaking out. And it shows too. His breathing is picking up, his wide nostrils flaring again. I reach out and put my hand on his shoulder, giving some reassuring squeezes. No, it's okay. Maybe you got really high or drunk or something. What's the last thing you remember? Carl starts clicking his fingers together again, looking away up at the hall. The lake? Yeah, I remember we went back to your house, then down to the basement, and then... Carl frowns. I don't remember. I watch him carefully. But then I remember looking behind the plastic bins and there was this... Help! We both jump as the scream comes from right down the hall. Carl and I both look at each other, wide-eyed. What the hell? Hello? Is someone out there? That sounds like Raven. Carl starts to hesitantly walk up the hallway, and I move to follow and immediately regret it as I put weight on my ankle. It's completely stiff now, and pain shoots up my shin like a lightning. My gasping causes Carl to turn around in confusion. Then his eyes light up when he sees my leg. Oh shit, here. He reaches out, and I wrap an arm around his neck. He's sturdy and strong, easy to lean against, and I sigh with relief as I take the weight off my injured ankle. Somebody? We hobble our way down the hall, following the sound of Raven's panicked voice. We take a left at the end of the hall and are confronted with an almost identical hallway to the last. That's when I start to smell smoke. Do you smell that? Carl puts his nose up. Something's burning? Help me! I almost jump again as the sound comes from right on our left, the only door on the left side of the hallway. We both look at the door for a moment, Carl's ears perked straight up. And we both jump again as the door shakes from the several heavy bashes that rattle the frame. Help! The cry is mournful, like he's giving up. Raven? The shaking and pounding stops. Carl? Carl! The voice instantly turns hopeful, and the voice grows muffled, as if Raven is pressing his muzzle right up against the door. I'm stuck! The door won't open, and there's fire! What? Chase? There's something burning on the stove or something. I can't see it. Me and Carl look at each other in bewilderment. Guys, it's getting really smoky in here. I can't really see anything. He gives a cough. And it's really hard to breathe. Alright, hold on a sec, man. We'll get you out. Carl shifts me to the wall so that I can lean against it, then tries the doorknob. The knob barely turns, clearly locked. Shit. Yeah, it's locked. It's getting really hot in here. Hold on. Carl shoves his shoulder up against the door. It gives a few creaks, but otherwise stays solid. Please help. His plaintive whimpering is barely audible through the thick wood. What kind of lock is it? Maybe we could pick it? Carl studies the knob. I don't think a paperclip is going to work. I lean in to look and find myself staring at an old-fashioned keyhole. The hell? Raven, can you unlock it from that side? No, there's nothing there. Guys, I can't breathe. His voice is getting desperate again. There's no other way out? No other door in there? Raven doesn't answer, and Carl and I both wait for a good 10 seconds. Raven? Ah! We both jump for the third time before Carl presses his face up against the door. Raven? Raven, what happened? For a few seconds, all we hear is coughs. Then Raven's voice is lower, up against the bottom of the door as he's laying down. Something in the smoke! Help! What? What's in the smoke? My mind flashes back to what I heard in the attic. Something! Can't see! Open the door! Fuck. Alright, man, stand back! I don't know if he's talking to me or Raven, but I take a step back anyway. Carl takes a few steps back, then throws his body forward, smashing up against the door. It shudders a little bit and I hear a crack or two, but otherwise there's no change. He tries it again, the same result. Carl, I don't think that's gonna work. Carl doesn't say anything, instead backing up until his back touches the opposite wall. He takes a deep breath, then charges forward, his head down this time. Instinctively, I close my eyes, imagining Carl snapping his neck right in front of me. The impact is much louder this time, and it's accompanied by a crunch. When I open my eyes, it's not Carl's neck that's broken, but rather the wooden door. Carl's head has completely busted through the door, so that his head is poking in to the other side. I stare, expecting to see the tendrils of black smoke snaking out the broken door. but there's nothing. Carl sets his hands on either side of the door, apparently taking a look around. Raven? You okay? I walk up to Carl's side to put a hand on his back. Carl, what is it? Is there a fire? Carl braces himself against the door before pushing back, yanking his head out the opening. He comes up with a bunch of wooden splinters clinging to his head fur and beard and sweatshirt. Nothing. I duck down and look through the opening as well, taking care to keep weight off my injured foot. I am greeted to the sight of a brightly lit dining room and kitchen, but it's clear, no smoke in sight. It was! It was completely black in here a second ago! I look down at the trembling voice of Raven below me and I see the husky curled up, his head poking up from his fetal position. Hey, Chase. Hi. I don't know what happened. There was smoke everywhere. It's like when you open the door, it all got sucked out. I sniff, and now I can't even get a whiff of smoke aside from the residual taste I still have in the back of my throat. I hear a click sound next to my head and look over to see the doorknob twist. I pull my head out of the hole and Carl pulls the door open. Are you kidding me? It was locked, right? It was definitely locked. Raven gets up, brushing shaky hands down his shirt. You okay, man? Yeah. Just thought I was going to die for a second. I watch as Raven struggles to keep his ears perked. What happened? Raven takes a deep breath. I don't know. I just woke up in here and smoke just started coming out of the stove or oven or something. You said you saw something? Yeah. Something in the smoke. It looked like arms or something. Carl and I look at each other. But it might have just been the smoke. I look around the room, scanning it for any sign of the black smoke that Raven was so adamant about having seen. I don't think he was just seeing things because I'm pretty sure I hadn't imagined the smell. I promise I'm not lying. It's just what I saw. I think the bigger issue here is that we're here at all. I mean, where the hell is here? I spread my hands out, giving an incredulous laugh. I thought that maybe it was just another part of your house? Raven looks at Carl. I mean, I went downstairs after you guys and found this hole. Then everything went dark. Carl looks down. Same here. I followed Carl. We both look at Carl, but he doesn't say anything. Instead, just moves past Raven into the large kitchen next to the dining room. I hobble after him, then reach out to lean against the counter. I try to gather my thoughts. Everything still feels dreamlike, surreal, and my thoughts are sluggish. Carl, do you have any idea what happened? I mean, that hole. Did you go there too? Carl sets his hands on his hips, eyes wandering around the room. Honestly, I can't remember anything that happened after the lake, man. Raven casts a sidelong look at me before moving next to Carl. Well, maybe it will just take you a second before you can remember? I was really confused when I woke up here. I was curled up over there on that counter. Raven points to the marble-top counter, under a row of over a dozen pans hanging from a fixture attached to the ceiling. We stand there in silence as, I imagine, we individually absorb the situation we're in. Carl, are you sure this isn't some extension of your house? Maybe something that leads out of the crawl space? The ram laughs, but it definitely isn't genuine. Dude, I think I'd know if this was some part of my house. Unless my parents have just been building this secret kitchen underground for who knows how long. I glance at the lighting, which is definitely electric, then over at what looks like an electric stove. While everything sort of looked old-fashioned, there was a mixture of modernity to it as well. Where else could we be? Raven, I remember going to the crawl space, then losing consciousness after we found that hole, which is where you went, Carl. Carl finally does turn to me at that point, his brow furrowed. Do you think I had something to do with this? Even though I was implying that he might know more, Carl's sudden jump to being defensive catches me by surprise. No, I'm just wondering if you might have any more ideas, since it's your house, you know. Carl laughs again. I'm struck by the fullness of it. Usually when Carl laughs, it was crackly and half-hearted. Now it's loud and a little abrasive. Think I just waited in the shadows and drugged you all up with acid or some shit? I don't respond, just watching Carl as he stares back at me, breathing hard. Raven coughs loudly. Hey guys, let's calm down. You know, I'm kinda hungry. Why don't we make some food? That seems to break Carl out of his stare down with me as he looks over at Raven and huffs out one of his more characteristic chuckles. Really, Raven? Yeah, that makes me feel better. Raven starts opening cupboards, but each one is empty. Carl turns back to me, frowning. Sorry, Chase. I'm just fucking freaked out too. I don't think we're in my house anymore. He chuckles again. I mean, are we even in Echo? What time is it anyway? I reach into my pocket to check my phone, and that's when I remember I have a fucking phone. I almost jump with the realization and shove a hand into my pocket to pull it out. Why didn't I think of that before? What? Phone! I pull it out excitedly and hit the button to turn the screen on. And I'm met with a black screen. My phone's dead. Are you fucking kidding me? I hold the power button down, but nothing happens. I look up to see Raven and Carl getting similar results, Raven shaking his as if it's going to help. Carl shakes his head. Were we out that long? This is crazy. I press a hand to my face for a moment, the idea that this could still be some sort of dream come into mind. I remember after taking an overnight job back when I was a freshman and how that had fucked up my sleeping schedule. That in turn gave me all kinds of fucked up realistic dreams. Sleep paralysis plagued me to the ends of my wits, and I remember one time I thought that I would never be able to get up. I was stuck in bed, but each time I sat up and thought it was over, I'd end up sort of waking up again, still lying down, stuck in my paralysis. Dreams within dreams within dreams. No food either. My scattered thoughts collect together long enough for me to decide on the next course of action we should take. Alright, this is stupid. We need to go out and look around. We'll find the way out eventually. Yeah. We need to do that. I looked around a little, but didn't find anything. I grip the counter a little more tightly as I feel a slight wave of dizziness come over me, making everything feel even less real. But the pain that's shooting up from my ankle is very real, and just a glance down at my ever-growing swelling confirms it. The suspicion that we'd somehow been drugged grows, but I don't want to upset Carl again, so I don't mention it. Okay, yeah, let's stick together and go. We'll find the way out. Aw, I'm hungry. We can eat when we get out. There's no food here anyway. I turn and, even though I do it as lightly as possible, the moment I set my right foot down, feels like 100 needles press into my ankle. Oh fuck! Carl's at my side instantly, reaching out a hand to steady me. Dude, you alright? What happened? I lean all my weight on the counter at that point. Just letting my foot dangle as I hold it off the ground is painful. He fell down a ladder and landed on his foot wrong. What? But it's only now that it's really starting to hurt. I say it through gritted teeth. The pain is actually making me sweat, and I'm realizing that I might have done more than just sprain it. I don't think I could walk like this. How did you fall down a ladder? He woke up in an attic. Here. Carl hunches down in front of me. My stupefied brain thinks up a butt sex joke, but I manage to keep it canned. You sure? I could just lean against you. That'll take too long. Besides, it looks like you can't walk at all right now. Hesitantly, I let go of the counter and let myself sort of fall forward onto the ram's back. He's sturdy and barely budges as I lean all my weight onto him. Carl reaches back with both hands and hitches my legs off the ground as he stands, and I feel all the muscles in his back flex as he does. Damn, Carl, you work out? Carl grunts. Little bit. I move my head to the side to keep from knocking my nose against his horns. It's a smart move because just then, Carl nods his head in Raven's direction. Hey, I know this is kinda fucked up, but maybe grab a kitchen knife? Raven raises an eyebrow at Carl. Why? I immediately see what Carl's getting at. We have no idea where we are or who put us here. Might be safe to be ready to defend ourselves, you know? And you said you saw something in the smoke. Raven's eyes widen, but he reaches out to slowly pull a knife from a silver-looking knife block. The husky frowns at the shing sound it makes. His ears down and elbows in. It's clear he's never used anything as a weapon before. But I can't blame him. Neither have I. I don't know if I should be the one to do it, though. Well, you're not strong enough to hold Chase, so I've got my hands tied. He looks back at me. If anything happens, though, I'll have to drop you and help him out, okay, man? I chuckle softly. Yeah, no problem. Let's just hope that doesn't have to happen. And with the shaky husky in the lead, we set off back into the hallway. Immediately, it's clear that wherever we are isn't very large. 4 identical hallways lead us around in a perfect square. Each hallway has 3 doors on the right, 1 on the left, and a hatch in the ceiling that leads to the attic. What also becomes immediately clear is that the door to the left leads to the kitchen, but from the kitchen there's only that one door out. Each time we open the door to the kitchen, we come to realize that the angle in which we enter is the same. The first time this happens, we're mostly just confused, wondering if maybe we backtrack somehow. After the second time, though, Raven laughs. This isn't real. We're on drugs or something. But we're all seeing the same thing. Or I'm just having this dream and none of you are real, eh? The husky's voice is bordering on crazy. That paired with his grin, paired with him holding a knife, is slightly disconcerting. Carl huffs, hitching me up higher on his shoulders. Alright, calm down. Just don't think about it. Let's try the other doors. I'm a little surprised at how well Carl is taking all of this. I wonder if part of it has to do with any of the weed that might still be in his system. We start trying the doors on the right, and this time things are different. The first door opens up to a wall, just an extension of the beige color of the wall surrounding it. We stare at it for a few seconds, and for the first time I get a deep, unsettling terror in the pit of my stomach. I manage to keep it from rising to the surface, but all of this bizarre imagery combines with the surreal haze is making me feel sick and claustrophobic. Bummer, that's definitely not the way out. On to the next door. Carl chuckles again, and I feel myself cling to his attempt at humor just to keep myself sane. The next door opens up to what looks like a bathroom. It's definitely not a modern one though, since it's complete with a pull chain from a high tank. Well, at least we got the essentials, right? The next door reveals a room full of tools and chains hanging from the ceiling, along with a sawhorse. The walls, though, are lined with wooden planks, and Carl gently sets me against the hallway wall before hurrying in and peering at the wood. Look, it's just concrete behind it. I don't bother to ask what the hell is going on again. I'm just starting to accept that where we are can't be explained. More doors are opened, 12 in all. One is completely white and empty, another contains a frilly bedroom, which is where Carl says he woke up. Further along, we come across a hall that looks like an office, along with a room decorated with sofas and a chandelier. When we reach one of the doors in the last hall, though, something is different. The first thing that I notice is a smell. Though it's faint, I can tell it's sweet in the most disgusting way possible. Ugh! What is that? Raven holds a hand up to his nose as we approach the second to the last door in the last hall. This one is clearly damaged. The wood is splintered in the middle, bulging out slightly as if it had been punched from the other side. We all stare at it for a moment, the smell growing stronger. Then it hits me. Oh God, do you think... I can't finish, covering my muzzle with both hands. Raven, who had been right next to the door, steps back with an arm up around his face, looking like he's about to throw up. I imagine the smell is a lot worse for him. Maybe we should skip this one for now. Carl hesitates, then gently sets me down against the wall again. We need to check every door. This could be the way out, you know. He looks back at me, but I don't say anything, just grimacing at the door. He holds out a hand to Raven. Knife. After handing it over, Raven takes several more steps back, further up the hall. I press my hands to my muzzle, readying myself to shut my eyes. As Carl turns the knob, I grit my teeth. This room has no illumination, therefore we have to rely on the light from the hallway to see inside. As the light from the opening door spreads across the room, I see that it's rather simple. The walls are concrete, peppered with craters and rocks. The floor is smoother, but with webs of cracks in its surface. I can't see the ceiling, but I do see what's hanging from it. Once the door opens completely, there's enough light to fully take in exactly what it is. A noose, frayed and old-looking, but unmistakably a noose. Carl stares at it, then sticks his head in further to look back and forth before stepping back to close the door. What was it? Raven calls up from the hall, his hands clasped nervously together. I notice then that the rotting smell is completely gone now, instead of getting stronger when Carl opened the door. Nothing. Empty room. I see Carl visibly trying to keep his breathing under control as he holds a knife out to Raven before bending down in front of me again. Really? Oh, thank God. Carl trembles as he stands up with me in tow. As the husky moves on to the final door, I lean in next to Carl's cheek. You okay? Did you see anything? He turns his head towards mine, touching his cheek to mine. Aside from the rope? No. It's hard to say whether or not I believe him, or if he's just trying to protect me from whatever else he saw in there. Either way, I don't press for it. The last door is locked. It's big and made out of small logs. Its deep brown color contrasts with all the others. Raven jiggles a handle a few times, and Carl tries to look into the cracks between the logs, but it's completely black. So, that's it? That's all the doors? I'm starting to feel a certain level of panic again, now that we know that we're stuck. Carl, I think, picks up on that and comes over to where I'm leaning against the wall to set a hand on my shoulder. It's all right, man. We haven't checked the attic either. I mean, there aren't any windows like you said. We're probably in a basement or something, right? The reassuring hand feels good, but it's not exactly enough to keep me from feeling a certain level of despair. Honestly, I think I'm still dreaming right now. Carl doesn't say anything to that. Raven sidles up next to us. Well, dream or not, I'm still pretty hungry. We both glance at Raven, and I can't help but give a little laugh at the grin on his face. I guess, at least for now, it's best just not to think about it. We head back to the kitchen, which doesn't take very long because every door on the left leads to it. We all split up to search the many cupboards and drawers of the kitchen for food. We come up mostly empty, only finding silverware and cooking utensils here and there. Because of my injury, I cover a lot less ground, only able to hobble around along the counter, using it as a crutch as I move down a line of cupboards. Even if we were able to find any food, there's no way I'd be able to cook it. The only thing I'd ever been able to make on my own was a grilled cheese sandwich back when I was in high school. even though I'd almost burned down the house when I dropped a piece of bread on the gas stove. In a panic, I threw the flaming bread across the kitchen into the living room. I smile at the memory as I open the last cupboard along the wall, and right in front of me is a block of cheese on a glass plate. Next to it is a loaf of bread in a plastic bagging and a small square of butter wrapped in wax paper. I stare for a moment, waiting for the food in front of me to disappear. I even blink a few times to be sure. Uh, guys? What's up? You seen this? What? Cheese, bread, and butter. I stand to the side and Raven perks up. Oh, you found food. I saw you already checked that cupboard. Raven is next to me a few seconds later, reaching in to take out the food. For a moment, I swear the bread blurs as he pulls it out, and I have to shut my eyes for a moment to keep from feeling sick. I feel Carl support me from behind, with his hands on my shoulders. Whoa, dude, you alright, Chase? I grab onto the counter again. Yeah, it's just... Carl waits for a moment. What? I was thinking about grilled cheese before I opened the cupboard. Like, you just wanted a grilled cheese sandwich really badly and it popped up? Sort of. Huh. Carl walks up to the bread and bends over, observing it closely. It looks real. It is real. Raven walks up to the cupboard where he had pulled the food out from and closes it. Alright, I'm wishing for a steak. He closes his eyes for a moment, then reaches out to pull the cupboard back open, smiling expectantly. It's empty. Well, grilled cheese isn't bad. Raven moves down the counter to grab one of the pans hanging from the rack. Carl moves over to my side as Raven turns the gas stove on with the click, click, click of the igniter. Dude, I think one of the important things to do right now is to stop questioning this place. We just can't make sense of it. I fold my arms. It has to be a dream. Carl puts an arm around me. Maybe, but dude, I'm just glad I'm not here alone. I nod in agreement. Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to deal with that. Let's just take it one step at a time for now, man. I manage a small smile. Are you high right now? Carl laughs. Man, I wish. I hear the sizzling of the melting butter as Raven plops it onto the pan. Carl and I go about setting slices of cheese in the bread as Raven starts searing them. The action of making food is enough to calm me down at least a little, and the other two keeping high spirits lifts mine. Before long, there are 6 grilled cheese sandwiches stacked on a plate. They look good, but after the first bite, I almost let the food fall back out of my mouth. What the fuck? I look over to see Carl and Raven pulling similar faces. Ugh, it kinda tastes like chalk. You know what chalk tastes like? Yeah, I ate some when I was a kid. He has a point. It's dry and crumbly, almost inedible. Well, it still sort of tastes like grilled cheese. Sort of. I don't think this is food. It's not that bad. Besides, it's all we got. Raven forces another bite, and so does Carl. I can't bring myself to do it. My ankle, the smoke, the dead body smell, and the noose, it's all too much for me to deal with right now. I watch Carl and Raven talk back and forth, and I'm again struck by how surreal this all feels. I think back to the time I first got stoned from a stupid pot muffin, how nothing felt real, how I felt like I wasn't in control. It's like that, only 10 times worse. I wonder if the others feel the same. Something ebbed to the surface of my mind, trying to break through the veil of fog, shrouding my mind. What are we doing? Why are we sitting here eating when we should be trying to figure out a way to get the fuck out? I open my mouth. Sure, everything is fine. I struggle to keep my food down and instead choose to look hard at the tablecloth. You not hungry? Raven is looking intently at my half finished sandwich. Nah, you can have it. I slide my glass plate across the table to Raven. Carl watches me but doesn't say anything, slowly chewing. I subconsciously note that he'd eaten around the crust, leaving those on his plate. We start discussing what else we might be able to do here, other possibilities on how we could get out. The attic is really the only place we haven't been yet, but because it's so dark, we're not so sure about going. Well, why don't we sleep on it and figure out what we'll do when we wake up? Raven yawns widely. That sounds good to me. Feels like it's been hours. It does feel that way, but without our phones, it's really impossible to tell. Leaving our plates where they are on the table, Raven leads us back out into the hallway. It takes us a few minutes to find the right door. Considering everything looks identical, though, we take special care to avoid the damaged door. As Raven moves into the bedroom, Carl leans against the wall, turning his head to talk back to me. Hey, we're gonna be alright, okay? I look back at the one green eye I can see and will myself to squash the boiling pit of dread in my stomach. Okay, it's just that I can't believe this is happening, you know? I gotcha. I just want you to know I'll be here for you, okay? I look back at his gaze for a while, to the point where I think he's getting uncomfortable. I sigh. You guys are just acting really weird about all of this. Yeah? Well, I guess Raven is being Raven, but you're acting different. Really? How? I swallow. Just yesterday you were throwing up over a job interview. Now you're the level-headed one while I'm freaking out. I laugh a little. I just don't understand what's going on is all. Carl sets me down against the wall, then turns to me with a hug. Hey man, I don't know either. I'm just trying to keep it together too. The hug surprises me, but I take it gratefully. I stare over his shoulder at the uniform hallway. Despite Carl's efforts, the worrying feeling returns. Raven pokes his head around the doorway. Hey guys! That little sofa thing is awesome. I'll sleep there. You two can have the bed. Sunday. And of course, I dream. I'm running through endless hallways. All kinds of hallways, including one that looks like a space station and another that looks like a medieval castle. In each one, I run into locked doors. Because of this, I can only move through the halls, never knowing what's behind those doors. Eventually, I wake up, but my dead limbs and heavy head tell me that I'm not awake, not fully. I brace myself and shut my eyes again. My heart thumps and my stomach churns with the disappointment of knowing that I'm still in that fucking bedroom. The one that tells me that I'm stuck in a nightmare that's beyond the one that I'm currently in. I feel things move about the room, hear things that sound like whining, crying, and screaming. Then I hear something in the ceiling move above me. It has many legs like a spider that weighs hundreds of pounds. And then I'm free. I hold still as a gradual release of the paralysis seeps through my muscles and joints. At this point, I feel like I've mostly learned how to cope with the nightmares. That thought would make me happy if I wasn't so crushed that I'm still in this actual nightmare. Immediately, anxiety rises back up in my chest as I realize how fucked up this actually is, how much sense this doesn't actually make. As far as I can tell, we've been drugged somehow and moved to this underground hellhole as an experiment of some kind. Someone in Echo had to have done this. One of the crazy old people. Maybe Duke. He probably built this underground maze just to watch us lose our minds, probably getting off on it at the same time. I grip the bed sheets and grit my teeth, grimacing at the ceiling as I try not to cry. That had to be it. This isn't some kind of supernatural alternative dimension. This is real and someone's fucking with us. We're probably being watched by cameras that are set up in corners and peepholes right now. That idea sends a shiver down my spine and I glance to my left, scanning the wall for any inconsistencies. We need to get out of here as soon as we can, and the sooner we start moving, the better. I hear a small whining grunt to my left. At that moment, and I look over, only to find that Carl isn't in the bed next to me. I stare for a moment at the tangled mess of sheets on the side of the bed, trailing off the side. Carl? Another grunt. Then I hear Carl. At least, I think it's Carl. His voice is deep, raspy, and it sounds like he's trying on some sort of weird accent that I've never heard him use. My name. Soiled. Slowly, I sit up, and that's when I see something white standing next to the bed. Jesus! I jump and slide back on my ass away from it, almost falling off the other side of the bed. Staring at it a few seconds longer allows me to make out the clear shape of horns under a bedsheet. Carl is sitting next to the bed with a white sheet over his head, swaying back and forth gently. What the fuck, Carl? I shout whisper to him, my earlier exclamation sounding way too loud in this quiet room. I look over at Raven, but somehow he's still curled up on the sofa, fast asleep. Returning my attention to Carl, I jump again as I see that he's staring straight at me. Or would be staring at me if there wasn't a sheet in the way. Carl, what are you doing? This isn't funny at all. I push myself off the bed, leaning against it to take my weight off my swollen ankle, now twice its original size, as I stand in front of Carl. I reach out to take the sheet off his head, but I hesitate. The horns. They look bigger than they should be, and the voice is so different. Dining. Love. Carl? Carl, you're scaring the shit out of me. My voice is weak and it cracks at the end as I lose my nerve. Had this place been getting to Carl more than he'd been letting on? But then maybe he was just sleepwalking. I remember him doing that when he slept over at my house years ago. I reach out again, more slowly this time, but again I hesitate. I can't shake the feeling that if I pull it off, it won't be Carl. Suddenly, the horned head shakes back and forth violently, the grunting reaching a fever pitch. Shocked, I fall back on my rear, yelping as my ankle is jolted. I lean back on my hands, watching with wide eyes. The shaking is so wild, the sheets start to slip off of my head, as if whatever is under the sheet is trying to shake it off. I brace myself, watching as the sheet slides slowly from the horns to reveal Carl. Of course it's Carl. He stares back at me with bleary eyes like he's just woken up. I swallow hard. Carl? Carl, what are you doing? He's silent for a few moments, then finally speaks. I know what to do. Where are we supposed to be looking? Anywhere, but I know it's here. I lean uselessly against the dining room table again, watching them. I'm biting my lip, trying not to lose my cool, trying to absorb everything Carl had just told me. You said James Hendricks himself came to you in your dream, right? Carl huffs, but doesn't look at me. Yep. And he told you that you had to find something? Carl gets down on his hands and knees and looks under the stove. I know it sounds stupid, but that's what happened. I frown. You know, I had a dream about a giant spider crawling through the ceiling, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be searching around for a spider in the ceiling. No, this is different. I've never had a dream like that before. He stands back up and looks right at me. It felt like He was actually in my brain, telling me. I look back at him for a while, not wanting to tell him he's going crazy just like I am. Well, it's kind of vague to just tell you that you need to find something, isn't it? He told me other stuff. Carl moves closer to me, starting to look through the various decorum of the dining room. Like what? Carl lifts up the vase, then looks inside. Said this place is chaos, a leftover memory from the old house. That still doesn't really make any sense. And that he organized it for us into separate sections to help us figure this out and clear his name so that we can get out of here. How is clearing James Hendrix's name going to end us? I throw my hands in the air to gesture at everything that this is. Carl bends down to look under the dining room table, then stands up right in front of me. What else do we have to go off on? Hey, I found something weird. We both look over at Raven, who holds up a corkscrew. Carl turns back to me, ignoring the husky. If we find it, that locked door will open and we'll be able to get out. If he's here, why doesn't he just show up himself and do this for us? He said he's weak, that there are other forces in this house that have more control than he does. He can only do so much. I gape at him. Do you hear yourself right now? Carl frowns, then moves past me. What does his name even need to be cleared of? I feel tears starting to sting in my eyes again, because now I think I'm the only one here who realizes how crazy this all is. Don't you guys get what's actually going on here? Raven stops rustling through the drawers and looks up at me. You okay, Chase? No, because someone's fucking kidnapped us and put us in this crazy maze dungeon and we should be trying to figure out how to get out. It's quiet for a moment as Raven and Carl exchange glances. It's okay, Chase. We're gonna get out of here. I lean my head back in despair, about to cover my face with my hands when something catches my eye. In the chandelier, a small white envelope is wedged between the glass ornaments. I squint to make sure that it's not my watering eyes creating an illusion. Yes, there's definitely an envelope up there, diamond patterns from the crystal cast across its surface. Guys? Carl ignores me as he continues to shuffle through the things on the counter behind us. Carl, I found something. I point straight up at the chandelier above me. Carl stops then, finally, and moves next to me looking up. Is that a letter? Looks like it. Do you think... is that what we're looking for? Carl gets up on the table, wobbling slightly as he reaches up to pull the envelope from the crystals. With a heavy thump, he drops back down on the floor. I'm still skeptical of everything right now, but as I get a closer look at the letter, I think I start to recognize it. That kind of looks like the same envelopes your mom collected. Carl picks up the envelope, turning it over. Kind of. It just says John on the front. Carl opens the flap to empty out the contents. Isn't that the guy that... Whoa! The letter lights up, and what sounds like a match being struck accompanies a flash. Carl gasps and drops the letter, shaking his hand. It's on fire! Shit, put it out! I stupidly wonder if the lights had somehow set the letter on fire as Carl starts trying to smother the letter with the sleeve. At that moment, a great moaning sound shakes the walls, almost knocking me off my feet and sending plates crashing to the floor. I cling to the table as the plates fall from the counter and the chandelier swings above us. The deep groaning cascades into a scream that makes me clap my hands over my ears. Carl is staring at the ceiling, his eyes wide, when he hears another hissing sound. I jerk my head to look back in time to see a gush of inky black smoke burst from the stove, another scream accompanying it. It rushes straight towards us, and for just a moment I see the outline of what looks like a mouth and eyes in the smoke before it engulfs me. My senses are completely smothered. It feels like something is slamming up against my chest, and all the air is gone to be replaced by an unbreathable smoke. Its consistency is like water, filling my ears and eyes. I scream into the emptiness, but I can't hear myself over the cacophony that sounds like rushing water mixed with muffled screams and explosions. I fall to my knees, then curl up on the ground into a ball, just praying that the savage thing killing me would stop. Just as I'm starting to give in, something grabs the scruff of my neck hard and yanks me up so violently that my teeth clatter together. The fingers are unmistakably hooved. "The letter, you fucking idiot!" Then I'm shoved forward and find myself laying flat against the dining room table. Completely blind, I feel around before finding the letter. I clumsily rip the envelope apart, grabbing the letter inside. Then, like a massive vacuum being turned on, the smoke is sucked out of the room along with the horrible screaming and roaring. In an instant, the room is quiet again, then I slump back to the floor, gasping for breath. Carl is right next to me, curled up in the same position that I was. Raven is whimpering, his face in his hands and his rear in the air. Raven is whimpering, his face in his hands and his rear in the air. Carl coughs a few times, wheezing in the air before he looks at me and the envelope clutched in my hands. "What the hell just happened? Are you okay?" I can't respond. I lean back against one of the chairs, tucked under the table for a moment, gathering my wits. "Carl?" "Yeah?" "If that James guy tells you anything else, just tell me and we'll do it." Carl breathes heavily in response. "Raven, you okay?" Raven sits a few feet in front of us, on his knees, tongue hanging out as he gasps. "Good, good. You know that's what I saw yesterday." "Yeah, I gathered that." I give a short, humorless laugh. That, and also that I'm done asking questions. I just want to get out of here. After a few minutes of catching our breaths, I turn my attention back to the letter. Somehow, it's completely undamaged despite catching on fire. It feels crisp and new, and the ink almost looks fresh. It definitely looks like it came from one of the bins in the crawl space. But if that were the case, then there's no way that it could be in the great condition it's in. The letter itself is short, and I start to read it out loud. "My dearest John, the militia grows more agitated by the hour, and I fear that they will demand a search of this mansion. If that does indeed occur, I will do everything in my utmost power to hold them off." I look over at Carl, wondering if he just wanted to read the letter instead, but he looks right at me. "They will never find the room that I left you in. Do not fear." Carl moves closer to me, his hands reaching out to grab my shoulder. Carl?" "But if they so much as try to lay a finger on your head, it will be the last thing that they ever do." Before I can even move, Carl leans in and kisses me. I'm just able to get a glimpse of Raven's shocked face before I'm practically smothered by Carl's soft, warm nose and lips. I freeze, my shoulders tensing. It's not that I'm not enjoying it, it's just that the kiss was so unwarranted. I'm not sure how long it lasts, but I never make a move to stop it. When Carl does finally pull back, it's awkward and he's looking just as confused as I am. Raven sits there, openly staring at us. Carl lowers his ears, his nose growing pink. Sorry. I don't know why I just did that." I clear my throat. Uh, don't worry about it. This place is doing weird things to me too." "Aww, that was so cute." "Raven, could you help me up?" I mostly ask him so he won't dwell on what just happened. Carl clears his throat. "Well, I think the door's open now. Let's go check." We make our way slowly down the hall, Raven just behind us. I lean in closer to Carl's ear so the husky can't hear. "So, was that really you? Or did your great whatever take control again?" I don't know. I think I was in control, just felt like the right thing to do, you know? It looked like you already knew what the letter said. Yeah. I wait for him to go on, but he doesn't. Well, what does he need his name cleared for anyway? Being gay? I don't think people care about that stuff anymore. No, he already sort of knew that. Besides, that was basically a love letter. So, what is it that he thinks has ruined his legacy? Carl thinks. I guess the idea that he just allowed his lover to die. I think people believe that he's just sort of left John to die, didn't really try to save him. This whole mess seems like a pretty roundabout way to go about that, in my opinion, but like I said earlier, I'm done asking questions. Well, it was kind of nice. The kiss, I mean. Carl looks back at me with one green eye. Yeah? I smiled a little. I guess the fact that something had been growing between us since the beginning of the week is pretty undeniable. And now we're here in this crazy alternate dimension with smoke monsters. So, well, fuck it, I guess. I lean forward and kiss his big, soft cheek. Yeah. Carl grins and is about to say something when I catch a movement out of the corner of my eye. Immediately afterwards, I hear a dull thump and Carl grunts, his eyes bulging before he crumbles, sending me to the floor with him. Oh my god! I yelp as my ankle bangs against the floor and I roll onto my back, teeth grit, straining to reach down to hold my foot. Whatever just hit us is standing over me now. I raise my hand feebly to hold off the next blow. When it doesn't come, I lower it slowly and look up. Jenna? Jenna stands there stoically, holding what looks like a small wooden stool. Jenna? What? How did you get here? Jenna slowly sets the stool down, slowly seeming to recognize me. I lean forward to feel my ankle, the pain radiating from it in hot pulses. Chase? Are you okay? What happened to your leg? I sprained it. Hey Jenna, it's been a while! I look over at Carl, who's still curled up on his side, his arms wrapped around himself. Carl, are you okay? Then to Jenna. Did you hit him? Jenna walks past Carl and crouches down next to my leg. This looks really bad. Yeah. Carl, are you okay? Ugh. Carl grunts and turns over to face us, a hand to his chest. Jenna, what the fuck was that? Jenna looks at my ankle a while longer before standing up and looking around. When it doesn't look like she's going to answer, Carl sits up. How did you find us here? Raven perks up. Yeah, is there a way out? Jenna finally looks down at Carl, and I note the complete lack of concern in her eyes. I came to your house looking for TJ and ended up going to the basement. She looks down the hall again. And I ended up here somehow. I blacked out before I did, so I didn't know how to get out. Carl finally stands up, warily eyeing the stool held loosely in Jenna's hand before bending down to help me back up. Your leg okay? He grunts into my ear as he slides my arm over his shoulder and slowly pulls me back up onto his back. Mostly. I think I just kinda twisted it up again. Carl grunts again and turns back to Jenna, now with me on his back. Well, that's pretty fucked up to just blindly swing at someone around the corner. No, what's fucked up is waking up in a place you have no memory of going to. Jenna's sharp muzzle points right at Carl, glaring. Carl stutters for a second, clearly not expecting to have Jenna snap back at him. Hey, this isn't my fault. We have no idea where we're at either. Why are you guys fighting? Raven looks innocently between the two of them, his ears perked. It's a good question, and I watch Jenna closely from over Carl's shoulder. She just glares at Carl, arms folded. Does she blame him for this somehow? After a few seconds of awkward silence, Carl speaks up. Well, you hit me for one. I don't know why you are so mad at me. Jenna looks back at Carl, and I see the tenseness in her shoulders slowly loosen. I- I'm sorry. I'm just a little uptight after waking up here. Hey, you're taking it better than us. Chase was freaking out for hours. I give Raven a side glance. Well, things have been going crazy since you two left the lake. Like us ending up in this fucking nightmare dimension? Not just that. Jenna sets a stool down on the carpet before sticking out her forearm. That's when I see the crusted blood in her fur in the form of 3 long lines. What the? TJ attacked me. What? That sentence doesn't seem to fit together. TJ attacked? Why? I have no idea. The faraway, vacant look Jenna had in her eyes earlier is fading to be replaced by a more concerned expression that I better know her for. He's been losing it ever since Flint tried to grab him at the lake. I start to feel a little sick to my stomach. Why? He wouldn't tell me. He was just acting anxious, kept looking over his shoulder. But isn't he sort of like that most of the time? Jenna folds her arms, then shakes her head. No, he kept looking around, kept saying that he was seeing things. She stops short. Like what? Jenna looks up. Sydney. We're quiet for a while. It seems all these rumors about this town were true. Everyone is crazy. This isn't normal at all, even in Echo. Jenna looks at Raven. I'm sorry. Who are you? Raven grins. No, I'm sorry. I'm Raven. He sticks out a hand. Jenna looks at it before turning to me. Chase, something was going on with Leo too. He kept asking around for you, then he ran off saying that he had to take care of some things. Oh, I don't know why. I try to think of what Leo might have wanted from me, but I draw a blank. It could be anything. Anyway, I've been trying to find TJ for ages. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I tried Carl's house since I'd run out of any other options. Jenna goes quiet, then reaches into her pocket and pulls out her phone, holding it up, clearly looking for a signal. Just as I got to your house, Carl, I heard popping sounds. Jenna sighs and puts her phone away again. Gunshots, I'm pretty sure, coming from Main Street. Something's been happening to everyone. Jenna slides her hand into her back pockets, looking around. And now this. Wow. So something fucked up is happening all over town. I think about Leo and TJ and my stomach twists at the thought of them being out there. I can only hope that they were able to get out somehow. At this point, I'm just waiting to wake up. We all are. Yeah, especially after a giant smoke monster chased us around the dining room. What? Jenna looks at me and Carl. Carl glances back at me, as if asking me to be the one to explain the impossibility that had just happened. I take a breath, trying to think of how I'm going to say this. So, I think at this point, you're going to have to just go with whatever this place throws at you, Jenna. Yeah, we all just kind of accepted what's been happening. Well, we have to. Otherwise, it would just be us sitting around freaking out about how crazy this all is and not doing anything about it. And so far, it seems like we've at least been moving things forward. Jenna stares at us. What happened? We all stand in front of the wooden door in a half circle, none of us wanting to open it. So, this is all to clear James's name? Seems that way. But why go through all of this trouble? I rest my good foot on the carpeted floor while I lean on Carl's back, wanting to give him some relief from carrying me all the time. Probably because of the smoke monster thing, it's trying to stop him. Maybe it's making all of these obstacles. Jenna had taken our whole description of what had happened in the dining room pretty well. She listened silently while I'd explain what had happened so far. So I guess if we can get his story straight, maybe get it out to the town about what really happened, we might be able to get it out of here. Jenna eyes the door. You think that maybe there's a reason why this monster doesn't want James to get this information out? We're quiet for a moment. Well, we don't have much else to go on. Again, there's a long pause as we all contemplate what the hell might be behind the door. That pause is broken by a certain husky, though, as his white hands suddenly reach out to grasp the handle. Maybe we've already done what needs to be done. I'll bet this gets us home. Raven! The heavy door opens slowly with an unearthly squeal. For the brief moment that I'm conscious, I see a black square in front of me that grows in size until it takes up my entire vision. The muscles in my back and neck seize up and my teeth clench together as my head jerks back. And then, I'm falling. And that's where I'm going to leave it for now because this episode went on for a little too long. But in all fairness, I'm trying to get through the Carl episodes a little bit quicker. So, yeah, that went sideways pretty fast. It went from a bad interview to a bad, not an intervention, like a bad meetup at the lake to finding ourselves in the ghost dimension, or as my friends like to refer to as the gay ghost dimension. And you guys will find out why later if you don't already know. But yeah, poor Carl. I really don't care about Chase because you find out more about this otter and it's like, dude, really? Musky little bitch. And Raven just like going through this, like, yeah, this is fine. It's perfectly fine. And Jenna acting a little suspicious or a little strange. But we'll find out why later in the next episode. So, anyways, thank you all for watching/listening, and if you would like to play Echo yourself, there will be a link down in the description. If you would like to support the Echo project and get earlier access for all of their ongoing works, I will put a link down in the description for their Patreon, where you can subscribe and get early access to their current works. And yeah, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.